Welcome to the Guelph podcast, where the goal is to motivate, inspire, and share success principles. I'm your host, George Masri. Today, I interviewed Matt and Laura Hawkins, who've been investors for almost 20 years. They got their start in a short-term rental cottage and then ended up buying some student rentals. And more recently, they've gotten into the multifamily space. They've taken on large construction projects, and they take pride in providing higher-end rental products to their tenants. And on this episode, we talked about managing a construction business and rental portfolio while having 3 young kids, the costs associated with separating gas meters on a recent Triplex project, why they're shifting their focus to multi-unit investing from the original student rental strategy, and what they would do differently in 2004 if they could go back to the start of their investment journey. I hope you guys are going to enjoy the episode. I will ask you to share this with a friend or family member. Let's get the message out there. Make sure to leave us a 5-star review on the Apple Podcasts platform. And then also, if you can subscribe on YouTube so you get the latest episodes, that would be appreciated. And if you are interested in some multi-unit investment opportunities, I'm talking 3 to 6 unit buildings in the Niagara or Hamilton region, I encourage you to reach out to me by visiting welloff.ca, and you can contact me through there. Enjoy. All right, I'm here with Laura and Matt Hawkins, who came all the way from Stouffville to sit down with me in person today, which is awesome. Thank you guys for coming by.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So I like to start off by asking you a bit about your childhood. You just want to tell me a bit about where you grew up, 1 or 2 things you remember?
Want to go first?
Sure, yeah. I grew up in Markham, and I'm one of 3 kids. I got an older sister and a younger brother. And my parents were entrepreneurial. I grew up with them owning a construction company with a couple of other partners. They had a few real estate investments. They weren't super active real estate investors, but they bought some new construction, and they owned a building where the construction company was and bought a little bit of land and sold it over time. So they kind of paved the way for the spark of real estate investing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up in Unionville, and my dad also was an entrepreneur at one point in his life. And I had an amazing childhood. I'm a middle child of 3 as well, same with Matt. And I didn't have much exposure to real estate. My parents owned their house, and it was always encouraged to make sure you own a house, et cetera. But we never really talked about investing. But then Matt and I started dating when I was 16. So I've been together for a long time, and his family kind of really exposed me to real estate and investing. And yeah, that's kind of
cool.
The touch of real estate.
Yeah. I know you mentioned that you guys have 3 kids.
Yeah.
So I actually, we have a 9-month-old.
Yes, congrats. I heard that.
So yeah, thanks. So it's been an adjustment for sure, trying to continue to invest and work and do all these things. But with 3, I can only imagine how difficult that could be.
Yeah.
So what have been some of the challenges and some of the adjustments you've had to make to continue to invest and grow your businesses while you have 3 kids?
I think it's been a balancing act for sure. I think that so our real estate growth has been really slow over time. Like, we bought our first property in 2004, and it's just been like a very, very slow process up until like probably 2 years ago. So while we had 3 kids in 3.5 years, so it was just like madness. So while that was happening, I was very uninterested in real estate. Matt actually did buy 2 properties almost on his own in 2016 when we had a 2-week-old baby.
Kind of without permission.
Yes, without permission, yeah. And anyways, those worked out fine, so I was happy about it. But yeah, so it was just a bit of adjusting. When we had really little kids and things were crazy, I couldn't handle anything else. So we just kind of take a back seat a little bit. But then now that our kids are older, our youngest is 3, she's going to school next year, so they'll all be in school. So now we have kind of more time to focus on it. But yeah, a lot of balancing. In the construction company that we own, Matt works long hours. So we've been really blessed to have support of our family, and yeah, just trying to kind of make it through. And you know what it's like with little kids, and you just kind of got to make it work, right?
Yeah. Do you have any tips for people like myself who are still trying to figure things out? Anything that's been helpful for you to, continue to do both things effectively, be good parents and run a good business?
I'd say delegate. Learn to delegate early on in your real estate career, and delegate in the investing world, delegate in your 9 to 5 if you can, and even delegate in your family life. Like, don't be afraid to hire a babysitter to help, or hire a nanny, or ask friends and family to help. you can't do it all.
Yeah, I think that's been a hard thing for me. I'm not great at delegating, but I'm getting better. But even stuff like little things like ordering groceries online is amazing. Things that I wouldn't have ever thought about before. And yeah, hiring babysitters when you think maybe you don't need the help, but you will want the help. I think that's really important. So trying to prioritize that and yeah, taking the help when you need it.
Yeah, for sure. That seems to be a pretty common thing. Like a lot of people have a hard time delegating. I think a lot of it has to do with the costs involved.
Yeah.
Because I guess as investors, we always try to think of the most effective way and efficient way to do things. And sometimes money can turn you away from delegating. But anyway, all right. So let's talk a little bit about your portfolio, also your business. I know you mentioned you have a construction company. So tell us a little bit about those two things.
Yeah, we have a construction company. It's called Hawkins Contracting. We're based out of Stouffville. We started it with my parents in 2010, and we build parks and sports fields and trails, and we also build transformer stations as kind of a little different wing of the business. We work all over the GTA, kind of up to Barrie and into Toronto and out to Oshawa and Milton in the west. We have 35 employees right now. Got some great team members. My parents retired from the business in 2020. And Laura and I bought the company from my parents. And it's great. We love our construction company. We love the jobs that we have in the company. Laura does some accounting work with the company and plans projects, and I'm the president of the company and oversee some project managers and estimators and our accounting department and health and safety department. And we're not trying to leave our 9-to-5s. We like the construction work that we do, but we are just trying to create a retirement fund since we don't have any pensions, and just trying to create financial freedom so that if we do ever want to slow down from the construction work, we got something else to fall back on.
Sure.
Yeah. And then I guess in terms of our portfolio, so we have student rentals in Guelph that we started buying a while ago in 2004, and we have 5 of them there that we manage. And then we have a duplex conversion in Lindsay, Ontario, kind of in like Kawartha Lakes area. And then we have a triplex that we just finished a couple months ago doing a big reno in Peterborough. Yeah.
I was actually listening to another podcast where you guys were touching on that triplex. I know it was pretty major. You had to take down a wall and a structural wall and do all sorts of modifications to the floor plan. So tell us a bit about that. How did things go with that project?
Really slow, really long. So we bought it in, I think we closed on it in August of 2021, so last year. And we had another project going on at the time, so it took kind of a little while to get us going. But the upstairs of the unit, so it's a huge triplex. I think it's maybe 4,000 square feet, so it's very big. And the upstairs was a 5-bedroom rooming house. So we converted that into a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. But in the process, had to take down a structural wall. And Matt can speak to this more than I, but in old home, it's not straightforward as what's a structural wall. So we weren't really sure until we started opening up walls, what exactly we were going to find. So it was quite a few roadblocks. There was also asbestos and knob and tube, and it's been built in, I think, 1890. So it's just old. So everything you open up, there's a problem. So that was a ton of work. The end result is stunning. We have beautiful, the end result is just incredible. They're really beautiful units. We have great tenants, great rents, great cash flow. Everything's good. But it was a long, I think it was 9 months of renovations and way more money than we ever dreamt of spending on that project. We had a huge plumbing issue in the basement that we were dealing with. And there's just problem after problem. But you kind of get that with an old house, right?
And the funny thing is now, because everything, costs have gone up substantially, what you thought you were going to pay originally might have ended up being a lot more.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And a funny thing, so I recently had a pretty big renovation on an older property as well. And I was looking to take down a wall. I brought in an architect. He came in and told me that it is a load-bearing wall.
Yep.
And then a few weeks later, I brought in a structural engineer who told me it's not a load-bearing wall.
Yeah.
So it was just, it's weird, right? With these older homes, I don't know. Anyway, it was just a little side point there.
Yeah,
but
we had a very similar experience trying to figure it out. Matt was in the attic trying to figure it out, an engineer trying to figure out, is this a load-bearing wall or not? And we didn't really know until we started taking it down, basically.
Yeah.
And it just kind of opened up a can of worms because this place was a legal triplex before, but it didn't meet the current codes. Like there wasn't proper fire separations between all the units, and we were trying to figure out whether we just do a lipstick renovation and keep the kind of grandfathered fire separations in place, or once we started removing drywall, then we had to bring everything up to the current code. So that's kind of part of what blew our budget and blew our schedule. Is once we got into it, we decided that we just rip down all the ceilings and do the resilient channeling and the fire rated drywall and the safe and sound insulation and stuff like that. And then we decided to, then we found out that our boiler needed to be replaced, and we decided to separate all the utilities. So we separated gas, hydro, and we were sub-metering the water. So the water is separately metered, but by us, not by the city. And that, I think, is going to give us some long-term peace of mind and long-term payoff, but it was kind of expensive in the short term to do it like that.
For sure. So did you say you separated your gas and water meters and hydro, of course?
Yeah. Hydro was actually already separated, but gas wasn't. So we separated gas and we put combi boilers in each of the units.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what was that process like to separate the gas meters? Did you, did you have to put a meter in each unit, or?
Yeah. So there was one already, and then we had to get 2 additional units, and it was actually the easiest thing ever just to get the units. The whole HVAC and actually installing all the appliances and things like that was much more complicated, but Enbridge, you literally just fill out a form online. They were very quick. I think they were there within a couple of weeks. It was incredibly easy.
That's for the gas meters on the outside of the house you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
But what about on the interior? What kind of modifications did you have to make to be able to do that?
Nothing significant. They just had to run gas lines to the location of the combi boilers in each unit. 2 of the combi boilers are in the unfinished basement, so that was easy enough. And then the combi boiler for the top floor apartment is upstairs on the top floor, so we had to run a gas line up there. So that wasn't too difficult.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and then that adds long-term value to your property. I did recently speak to someone who told me she manages a lot of properties. She told me that she actually, on the properties that are not separately metered for gas and whatnot, she just does a percentage of the total bill and bills it back to the tenants. And that's the first time I've heard of that for multi-units. I'm talking about like 3 to 6 unit buildings or whatever. Most people that I've spoken to, property managers, everything, they all just say, no, you take on the bill. It's just easy that way. I never thought about just giving a percentage of the bill to the tenants. Did you guys consider that as an option?
We did for gas for sure, and then that's actually what we're doing for water in this place. In the duplex we have in Lindsay, we actually have 2 separate meters that are wireless, so we can read water meters and separate the bills ourselves. But for the water bill in this unit, we're separating it by percentages based on kind of the size of the unit and the number of people. But we did talk about that for gas. We just want 0 headaches. We're kind of low. We want low maintenance properties. I don't want somebody coming back and saying, so and so, their place is set to 30 degrees in the winter or something like that, and I'm paying for their gas and I shouldn't be, and we just didn't want the headaches and the arguments, so we just figured it was better, knowing that we're going to hold the properties essentially forever. It just made sense to kind of make the investment now as opposed to dealing with the headaches down the road.
And what do you think it ended up costing you to separate the gas meters?
A lot, yeah. Matt, talk to that. I don't even know the exact number.
It wasn't super expensive to separate the meters, but each combi boiler system with all the radiators was, I think it was around $12,000 or $13,000 per unit on average. There's a 1-bedroom unit that's like a third the size of one of the 3-bedroom units. So the 3-bedroom unit cost more because it has more radiators. But overall, I think it was about $40,000 in combi boilers and radiators that we could have saved that if we had just replaced the existing bigger boiler system. But the radiators were all old. They were the old cast iron radiators. Some of them weighed 1,000 pounds. And our HVAC contractor told us that this place is going to be really spotty, really hot in some areas, really cold in other places, if we just stick with the existing system. So we were renovating to a pretty high standard and didn't really want that, so we decided just replace all the old radiators with new high efficiency radiators and install combi boilers, and then we don't have to have a separate boiler and separate hot water heater. And we have a theory that tenants don't typically seem to care too much when they're renting a property, whether it's $2,200 inclusive or $2,200 plus utilities. Like, it's not really any harder for us to rent it for $2,200 plus utilities. I think maybe in time, if there gets to be more rental units and more competition, then tenants will choose the place that's all inclusive, obviously. But for now, we haven't had any trouble renting places that are all plus utilities, and it helps with our cash flow because we don't have to allow for the utilities.
Absolutely, yeah. So you guys are that project was in Peterborough,
Yep.
but you also have some rentals in Guelph. So you're in totally like different markets here.
Yeah.
Why did you end up doing that? Why did you end up going from Guelph to Peterborough?
So we started in Guelph. Like I mentioned, we were in 2004. We bought our first one, and then slowly kind of bought a property here and there for the next couple of years. And then in around 2016, I think it was, we were like ready to buy something else, and just looking at the numbers in Guelph and what we could get for rent, it just didn't make sense anymore. And at that time, we didn't really know much else other than doing student rentals, because we didn't really know multifamily or putting a apartment in the basement was really something that was feasible. So we were just looking, the numbers didn't work, so we decided to check out another market. We bought a place in Thorold with a good friend of ours, and that was a good purchase for us at the time. We since sold that one, and then we were just looking for other markets that would give us better cash flow. And then kind of around that time, we discovered that multifamily was kind of a better game than the student rentals that we were in. So we started looking for a market that had better cash flow and just a better spread in terms of numbers. And then location-wise, we were just looking to be in the East End because that's just kind of where we are. And Matt's parents have a cottage out that way, so we're kind of always in that direction. So it just kind of made sense to us, and the Kawartha Lakes kind of Peterborough market seemed like a good market in terms of what he could get for the price at the time.
So you touched on multi-units being a better option for you guys versus student rentals. Do you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah. When we first started buying, when we first bought the student rental in 2004, student rentals cash flowed way better than single family homes. Like the first property that we bought, we renovated into a 5-bedroom student rental. And I think back then we got $500 a unit. So we got $2,000 a month, and the tenants all paid the utilities. Back then, if we just rented the house to a family, we would have got like $1,200 or $1,300 a month. So it was well worth it to be in the student rental game. Things have changed a little bit. I think in Guelph, most of our properties we get around $3,100, something like that, a month for rent now. They're all 5-bedroom, except for one of them's a townhouse and it's 4-bedroom. We get less on that one. But the single family rent has got a lot closer to keeping up with the student rental rent. But the values have just appreciated so much that like it's not bad rent at all compared to what we paid for these properties 10 plus years ago. But if you want to do a cash out refinance and get anywhere near 80% loan to value, our cash flow would be probably negative if we took that much money out. So we do some refinances, but typically we'll leave quite a bit of money in the property. So our cash flow is fine on those properties, but it just keeps a whole lot of equity in there. So we wanted to try to find some other options that we could have less equity in the property and still have better cash flow. And some people do it with student rentals by just putting a lot of people in a student rental, but we've limited it to 5 students in a student rental. And knock on wood, we've had really good luck with our students. Like we've never had a tenant not pay us rent. We've had a few close calls where we've had to hound them for rent. We've never had any tenants trash the house. We've had some tenants leave like dumpster loads of garbage in the house that we've had to clean out, but we've done that and the place cleans up well. But our theory is if you put like 7 or 8 students in a house, you're going to get the type of tenant that wants to live with 7 or 8 students, which is probably a party animal that might trash your house. So for us, that wasn't really an option, so we decided to go multifamily. We were looking for some bigger multifamilies, but in the meantime, we found a duplex conversion and a triplex, and now we're looking for bigger than that, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So if you can go back in time to when you started, which was when again? When did you buy your first rental?
First student rental was 2004, but Matt owned a cottage before that with his
Yeah.
parents, I think in 2003 or something.
Okay, so if you can go back to 2004, what do you think you would do then?
Buy more.
Buy more student rentals? What do you think
I mean, I guess
you'd go for?
Matt was 18, I think, when he bought his first. So like I would say buy more, but like we didn't have the money to buy more and really have the avenue or the vehicle to do it. So 2004 self, I was still in university too. So I don't know that I'd have much insight on real estate looking back, but
I think the biggest thing is we wish that we had found the real estate community earlier.
Yeah.
Like I started listening to podcasts in 2017. That was the first podcast at all that I had ever listened to. And I think I fell on Bigger Pockets first and just found this huge community that is willing to give you so much free information and be so helpful, and just a really good community to network with and make friends in. And if we had found that earlier, I think that we would have scaled faster, because
yeah.
we didn't really have any other friends that were real estate investors, and even like our parents' friends that owned a little bit of real estate. We didn't really know anybody that did it at a big scale. So we thought, like, we owned 3 or 4 or 5 houses before then. We thought, like, this is risky. This is kind of crazy that we have millions of dollars of mortgages. And it was kind of a limiting belief that that we were being a little bit reckless. And then you listen to Bigger Pockets or other podcasts and you hear people with hundreds of units, and it kind of gives you a little bit of comfort that what you're doing isn't all that crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. We're in the middle of July here, 2022. There's been some changes in the market and whatnot. What do you guys see yourselves doing in the next couple months? I know some people are maybe afraid. Some people want to hold back right now, wait and see what happens. Where do you guys stand, and what strategy do you think you'll go with?
Yeah, I think we talk about this a lot, obviously, and kind of when we finished our last reno, the one in Peterborough, we were kind of just renoed out, needed a bit of a break. It was summer, et cetera. So we just were going to enjoy kind of taking some time to just breathe a little bit. But it just kind of coincided with the market taking a bit of a downturn. And it's something that we, in my opinion, we're looking forward to. Even though it means our portfolio has gone down a lot, I think it provides a lot of opportunity. There's been many months and years that have gone by that we just wish that we could have bought something else that is great for our portfolio, and we just haven't been able to because the numbers didn't make sense. So I think this provides us with an opportunity to do that. So I think we're excited about that.
Yeah, we're trying to put together as much cash as we can so that when there is an opportunity, we can jump on it. We're not actively looking right now. We're looking at some properties, but it would have to take a pretty good deal to get us to buy right now. But I think we're going to be looking a little bit harder in the fall and into the winter. And we don't really care if we buy at the bottom of the market. If we buy and it still drops 10 or 15%, that's not a big deal for us.
As long as the numbers work.
Yeah, as long as the numbers work. So we're going to buy for fundamentals and make sure that it will cash flow even if the interest rates go a little bit higher. And we're kind of slow buyers too. Like, we're fairly hands-on with renovations and permits and placing tenants. Like, we typically GC our own renos and we manage all of our own properties. So we can't just buy like 5 or 6 or 7 properties within a matter of a few months because we don't delegate as much as maybe we should. But that's just kind of how we do it. So if we end up buying kind of as the market's going down and we buy a couple properties on the way down and we buy 1 or 2 at the bottom, like, that would be fine. We're in it for the long haul.
Absolutely. And in case anyone's listening, if you're wondering what GC means, it means general contractor. Because I actually had somebody say that to me. They weren't really like an investor, and they were just listening, and they're like, there's all these things you guys were saying and I didn't understand. So okay, I think that makes sense. Just stick to your fundamentals, know what you're looking for. You don't time the market, which is what you're saying. You don't know where the bottom is, and it doesn't matter as long as the numbers meet your criteria.
Exactly.
So all that makes sense. Do you think that you'll be maybe at some point selling your student rentals and bringing that money into the multi-unit space, or is that not really in the plans?
Yeah, we definitely talked about that. We actually almost sold some of our properties in January, and of course, obviously, wish that we had at the time, but but whatever, it kind of is what it is. But yeah, we've thought about that. Like when you look at kind of to our earlier point, when you actually run the numbers on what our student rentals do, and kind of ignore the fact that they've like tripled in value, because that has been a bonus, but nice. But if you just look at the fundamentals and how much they cash flow, we could deploy that money a lot better somewhere else. So we've thought about that. We have kind of 2 properties that we're thinking of that are kind of lowest on the cash flow, but kind of highest, like we have a lot of equity in them. So we might look at flipping those and putting the money to work somewhere else. It just kind of depends. We're not in the position where we have to sell them. If the market continues to take a nosedive and they're worth way less than we think that that we want to sell them for, then we'll just hold them for longer. But we've talked about that. And then we also have to, if we're going to take money out of the market, we want a place to put it back. So we don't want to just sell the property and then be sitting on the money for, 1, 2, 3 years, whatever, kind of trying to figure out what to do with it. So I think it's a bit of a balancing act, but we've definitely had that conversation a lot about selling a couple of them.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to add to that, or that was pretty much a summary of your thoughts too?
That's pretty much it. Our return on investment of those properties is good, but our return on equity is kind of lousy. Like if you calculate a cap rate based on what they're worth now, the student rentals are like a 2 or 3% cap rate versus our multifamily are 5 to 6% cap rate. So it'd be nice to pull the money out and deploy it in something that we could double the cap rate. But Guelph has been a pretty good appreciation market for us. Lindsay and Peterborough has been a good appreciation market in the last few years, but it was a pretty flat market for quite a few years before that. So we don't want to pull all of our money out of Guelph and put it into secondary markets, because I don't know what's going to happen. Like some of those markets that didn't have too much appreciation might go back to not having much appreciation. So we want to kind of spread our investments over some different markets.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, that all makes sense. So basically you have goals in mind. I know you don't need to stop working right now because you enjoy your work. Is there a certain goal you have in mind? Or like how long do you plan on working? Is it just you don't know right now, or would you like to retire at some point in the near future?
I don't want to retire in the near future, but I would like to be able to spend more of my time on real estate in the near future. And so I'm working towards that in our construction company. I've got some great senior managers that are really stepping up, and they manage a lot of the day-to-day business now. I'm still involved quite heavily in day-to-day, but in the next 5 years, something like that, I'd like to free up some of my time to do more real estate, maybe get into real estate development, stuff like that. And we'd like to create enough cash flow that can pay for our lifestyle, that if we ever did decide to kind of semi-retire or at least retire from the construction company, we could live off our cash flow. But we're not in a big rush to do that.
Yeah. And what do you guys have? 4, 5, and 6-year-olds? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. They're almost 4. Yeah. 5 and 7. Yeah.
5 and 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how are you approaching teaching them about this? Because I know your parents kind of taught you a little bit about real estate. What's your goal in terms of teaching your kids about real estate?
I think it's something we talk about constantly. They often roll their eyes because we talk about it so much, but we just want them to be exposed to it and understand kind of the importance of investing and the importance of starting young and that sort of thing. Like they've been dragged everywhere to our properties since they were like before they were born, and when they're born like infants, they've kind of come along with us all the time. So we talk to them a lot about it, and it's super important for us to keep that conversation happening. I think a lot of 3, 5, and 7-year-olds don't know as much about real estate as our kids do because they just hear it all the time. I think it's something that's really important to us to keep having that conversation with them, and we want them to make their own way, but we want them to be able to see, and for us to set a good example of like I said, starting young and investing your money intelligently as opposed to just blowing it on stupid stuff that everyone does in their whatever, in their teenage years and their 20s and that sort of thing. So it's something we talk about a lot.
Yeah, your parents told you if you don't start spending your money wisely, they're going to make you pay rent when you're a kid, right?
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
a kick in the butt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have been an investor if it wasn't for that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think that's so important. But then at the same time, you don't want to like push it onto them too much so that they just get sick of it, right? So I guess there's some sort of balance there.
Yeah, we try to, like when we are going on nice vacations or like we put in a pool last year, and we try to explain to them that we were able to do this because of the real estate investing that we do, and these rental properties paid for this vacation, or the duplex and Thorold that we sold paid for our pool. So we try to explain that to them. We're not pushing it on them, but if we figure over the next 20 years, if we can explain to them enough times what real estate investing has done for us, then hopefully they'll make the choice to become real estate investors themselves.
Yeah. And we kind of joke with them too, especially with our oldest one, about when he goes away to university. I said, you have to go to either Trent in Peterborough or University of Guelph, and then you have a place to live.
Yeah.
And then you can manage the property. And he's like, excited, like, oh, I get to collect the rent. Like, yeah. So yeah, we do talk about it a lot with them. I think it's really important to start it young.
I went to a networking event yesterday, and they mentioned that they had this sort of kind of like a game that they play with kids. I forget what it's called, something to do with sense. Money Makes Sense or something like that, but CENTS. And they were just teaching these fourth graders about the different options you have with your money. I think they were saying that you can like get a dog, but this dog is going to cost you $25 a month. And one of the kids got 6 dogs. she was almost crying, like, I won't have enough money to pay for these dogs. She's trying to give them away to somebody. But I think like little games like that are pretty cool too to teach kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, we touched on a couple things. Do you feel like there's anything we missed or anything important that you'd like to share?
No, I think we went through a lot, and Matt kind of alluded it to at the beginning, but I think something that's been great for us in the last, I think it's just been over a year that we've kind of been more active on social media and Instagram, is just connecting with other investors and realizing that there's a real estate community out there. As we talked about earlier, we had no idea that this community existed or that people were buying multiple properties. I remember each time we'd go to buy another property, we would ask our parents or ask our friends or family, like, hey, we're thinking about buying another property. Like, what do you think? And they'd all be like, you guys are nuts.
Yeah.
Like, you need to stop. Like,
Stop.
you guys are 20 something, whatever. Like, focus on, having a house and getting married, doing all those things. And I guess luckily we ignored them because we just did it anyways. But so I think but again, if it was a limiting belief, but by surrounding yourself with like-minded people, you realize that there's so much more that you can do and that you can push yourself further. So that's been a huge thing for us in the last couple of years, is just surrounding yourselves with those people, connecting with people like yourselves, and listening to podcasts and things like that. It's been a real game changer in our mindset, and really encouraged us and inspired us to kind of keep going, and that our goals weren't crazy, that they were very much attainable. So
yeah, and now that you've accomplished quite a bit and you have a decent portfolio, what do your parents say now, or what do those people say to you, when the ones that were telling you you're crazy?
Well, funny enough, my parents bought an investment property, and so did my brother and my sister and Matt's sister. So I think it's been a good influence on everybody, and it's something that now, like my family, we talk about real estate all the time. So it's been a really awesome welcome change. So I think they're super proud of us. I think sometimes they still think we're a little crazy, but do you agree?
Yeah, I think sometimes they think that we're crazy, kind of how much we take on, but we like everything that we do and try to delegate the things that we don't like, and it's manageable for us at this point, so we just keep doing it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So to finish things off, do you want to just tell people how they can connect with you? What's the best way?
Yeah, I think probably Instagram would be the best. We started an account just over a year ago, so we're at Sydney_investments. It's SIDNEY investments, and I'm not super active on there. I'm not great at Instagram, but I like following along and love to connect with other investors. Anybody who wants to chat real estate, we're always game. So that'd probably be the best place to get in touch with us.
Awesome, great. Thank you guys for coming by.
Thank you.
It was
Thanks for having us.
Not too bad of a drive, I guess, from Stouffville, but
bad.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys were able to make it. A lot of people want to do virtual, but I like the in-person stuff so much more.
Yeah, in person's great. It's really nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Thanks
all right.
for having us.
Yep. Thanks, George.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to this episode. Your support is truly appreciated. And if you can share this with a friend or family member that might benefit from the information, remember our goal is to motivate and inspire others to take action and to build wealth and to become well off. Enjoy the rest of your day.